אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא ועת נעשה בחפצו כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה.
Welcome to the weekly Torah perspective, which is this week not on the Parsha of the week, because there is no such thing as the Parsha of the week. We will concentrate, of course, on the Yontif of Shavuot, as the Yontif that we call Zman Matan Torah, the time of the giving of the Torah. And we already discussed last week that this is a very difficult concept to even understand why it should be called Zman Matan Torah, when in fact we did not receive the written Torah until 39 years later, right? This happened in this, almost 40 years later, when Moshe Rabbeinu, on the last day of his life, wrote 13 Sifrei Torah, 12 of which he gave to the 12 tribes, to the Shvatim, and one that was put in the Orna Kodesh. Even that Torah was not actually complete, because Yoshua added 8 verses at the end of the Torah that describe the death of Moshe Rabbeinu. All this is very difficult to understand if we regard the Torah, as our sages and our Jewish tradition really does, as something that existed even before the creation of the world. I'm not going to go into that today, because it's a subject in its own right. It needs a lot more consideration, it needs a lot more time, and it is, to be honest, a bit esoteric, and therefore perhaps better left for a later time. What I want to concentrate on is what actually happened at Har Sinai. If the Torah was not given in the form as we have it now, as the written text that we take out of the Orna Kodesh every Monday, every Thursday, every Shabbos twice to read from, that was not given on Har Sinai. Then what was given on Har Sinai? How do we understand that? Well, you might say, okay, so the Aseres HaDibros were, or the Shnei Luchos HaBris, the 2 tablets of the law were given on Sinai. Well, also that is not correct, because the 2 Luchos, the stone tablets, were given to Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai, and he stayed there for 40 days. And then he came down and he brought the 2 tablets, the Shnei Luchos HaBris, which we didn't even get because he smashed them in pieces, because we were busy with the Egel Azov. We were busy with the golden calf. So also those we did not receive on Sinai, at least not on Shavuot. There was, of course, a second set of Luchos, which were given to Moshe Rabbeinu during a second period. He prayed for 40 days, and then 40 days he learned with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and at the end of the 40 days he got the second set of Luchos, which he brought down. If you make the calculation, it comes out on Yom Kippur that year. On Yom Kippur, so Yom Kippur should be Zman Matan Torah if we go by the Luchos. Alright, you may say, maybe we didn't get the Luchos, maybe we got the Aseres HaDibros, usually called in English the 10 Commandments, but of course actually the 10 words. In a fancier word in English is the Decalogue, which is of course just Greek for 10 words. Sometimes these Greek terms are much more accurate than the English terms. 10 Commandments is a mistranslation in 10 words, the Aseres HaDibros. Maybe we got those. Well, we did get them. We will read about it on Shavuot. We will read out the 20th chapter in Shemos, the 19th and the 20th chapter, which speak about the revelation of Sinai, and it says there that God spoke those 10 words. But if you look what our sages comment on that, they say, no. They only heard 2 of the 10 out of the mouth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to say. And even that is being disputed. Others say, no, it was only 1. And even that is disputed. Say only the Aleph of Anochi they heard. Well, if you know the Hebrew language, you realize that the Aleph doesn't even have a sound. So the entire thing, what you see is not what you get here. What you naively think is called Matan Torah is actually not Matan Torah. Nevertheless, we call the Yontif Shavuos and we describe it in our tefillas as Zaman Matan Torah, the time of the giving of our Torah. So it is, but in what sense? So we already hinted at this last week. We said that what actually happened there is that there was a prologue and a preamble to the giving of the Torah in the form of the Shloshes Yemei Hagbala, the 3 days of forming a fence around Har Sinai, 3 days of preparation in which the people purified themselves, in which Moshe Rabbeinu went up and down the mountain and up and down the mountain with various messages from God about how to prepare for Matan Torah, for the revelation of Sinai. And it is there that HaKadosh Baruch Hu already said to the Bnei Yisrael, I'll read it from the Pasuk, it says that, I read it last week, but I'll say it again. Moshe Olo Elo Elokim, Moshe went up to God, Vayikra Elov Hashem, and Hashem called to him Min Hahar from the mountain Leimar, saying the following words, Kausamar Leveis Yaakov, this is what you should say to the house of Jacob, V'sagik Livnei Yisrael, and confront the Bnei Yisrael with, Atem Re'isem Asher Osisi LeMitzrayim, you have seen what I have done to Mitzrayim, to the Egyptians. And I brought you on the wings of eagles. And I brought you to me. This is what's happening. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu has engineered that the Bnei Yisrael should come to Har Sinai. He wants them there. He wants to meet them there. And now, given the fact that I have brought you here, if you listen to my voice, and you keep my covenant, then you will be a treasured possession to me, from all the nations, because the whole world belongs to me. This is, of course, what we discussed last week. You will be to me a priestly nation and a separate people. This, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe Rabbeinu, is my message to the Bnei Israel, and you should tell them. And he does. The people hear, and he say, Kol Asher Diber Hashem Nase. Everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, we will do. Okay. This is the introduction to Matan Torah. The introduction to note that there is not a word about mitzvahs here. It is not a word about I will command you things, I will give you obligations. It is none of that. It starts before that. The entire mitzvahs, the 613 mitzvahs that comprise the Torah, that are in the Torah, that are an essential element of the Torah, that are the way we live as Jews, they are not the beginning of Matan Torah, they are rather the result of Matan Torah. Matan Torah begins with a covenant, with a bris, with a joint enterprise between God and man, where HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us to Har Sinai and said, here I want to meet you, here I want to speak to you, and it was not an easy experience. If you listen very carefully when you go to shul and shuls, it will be read out to you. Follow it carefully. It says, don't come too near, don't go up the mountain altogether. You have to prepare yourself very carefully. Don't make sure that there is a fence around the mountain. it seems to be a rather terror-laden experience. And you can imagine that it should be, that if you are, as mortal beings, going to be confronted with the very presence of the Creator, I mean, we have no concept of what that even means. We're trying to form in our mind some kind of picture and to come to grips with it, but the truth is we do not even have a clue what it means that God speaks. What does that mean? And when it comes to the speech of God in the Sinai experience, Chazal make all kinds of interesting comments. They say, for example, if you notice that in the two sets of luchos, which are, of course, in the Torah, you find them in Parshas Yisrael, you find one version of the 10 words, and then in Parshas Eschanon, you find another version of the 10 words. There are differences between the two. And one explanation is, one is what was written on the first luchos, and the other one is what's written on the second luchos. Not so easy to understand, because it says about the second luchos that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will write on them, as hadaborim asher hoyu alu luchos v'rishonim. I will write on it that what I wrote on the first luchos. But be that as it may. There is one difference is the way Shabbos is described. On one, in one version is Zochar as Yom HaShabbos, in the other one it's Shomar as Yom HaShabbos. So we know Zochar and Shomar. Zochar means the active, making Kiddush, making Havdalah, and Shomar means to keep all the limitations on our behavior for Shabbos. Right? So there are two different aspects. Chazal say that Shomar v'Zochar b'dibur echot nemru. Zochar and Shomar and Zochar were said in one single dibur, in one single utterance. How can, so Chazal comment, this is something that we cannot do. One thing was said and we heard two. One thing was said and we heard two. And we find another opinion that all 10 of the Aseret Dibros were said in one single breath. Maybe that is the same as they heard only the Aleph, because the Aleph contains everything. The Aleph is, right, we say Hakal, Holich, Achar, everything goes from the beginning. The Aleph is the beginning of the Aleph base. Everything is locked up in this Aleph. If you have ever seen my own personal logo, I use the Aleph as my avatar, as my logo. I'm in love with the letter Aleph. The Yud above, and the Yud below, and the Vav in between. It is full with secrets, it's full with meaning. And in a sense, everything is locked up in that one of the Aleph. As HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed is He, is one and indivisible. He doesn't have moving parts, so to say. He doesn't consist of parts. He is one, He is an essential one. He's the one that underlies everything that we experience as multiplicity. In fact, that multiplicity comes from our own perception. We cannot, if I look at the world, I have to divide already the world in two different parts, me and not me. Otherwise, who is doing the observing and what is being the observed? But if in fact me and not me are not essentially different things, then I can't perceive it anymore, because there is no I who can perceive it. Every perception means dividing up the world. Dividing up the world. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have to do that, because He created the world. Obviously, He is not His creation, right? So He can see the whole of creation in one single. It's not even a perception. He relates to us as one single entity. The words are really not appropriate, but we're talking about things for which there are no words. So, this is the confrontation that they have with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it is fraught with danger. Because a real confrontation with HaKadosh Baruch Hu's yichud, with his unity, means there's no place for you anymore. You're being overwhelmed. So that is the danger. You find strange things in this preamble to Matan Torah, that if you come to the mountain, you will die. Well, yes, you can understand what that means. We said it in previous shiur, "Lo yerani hodel v'chai." Man cannot see me and live. It means that that kind of perception of the truth is not compatible with our continued existence as separate beings. What does that mean? It means that whenever we approach, all we can do is come nearer, being less far away, right? We know that there is a truth out there. There is a real truth. But, I said it last week, be very careful never to claim that you have that truth. All you can say is, today I'm a little bit less wrong than I was yesterday. Nevertheless, this is the beginning of what we call Matan Torah. Matan Torah, therefore, is not an event, it's a process. And the process started at Sinai. The process started with this confrontation with the revelation of God. Now, we have a very, very intriguing Gemara in Shabbos Peches. It's based on a pasuk in this preamble of the giving of the Torah, of the Ma'amat HaSinai, of the standing before HaSinai. And I'll quote the pasuk. It's in chapter 19 in Parshas Yisrael. Vayotzei Moshe es ha'om likras ha'elokim. And Moshe brought the people out towards ha'elokim, towards God, min ha'machane, from the camp. Vayisyatzvu besachtis ha'or. And they stood at the foot of the mountain. The word tachtis, tachas means under, and tachtis means the lower part of something, but it can also mean literally under something. Well, you can't stand under a mountain. You can stand at the foot of a mountain, but you can't stand under the mountain. They didn't go into a cave or a grotto. However, the Gemara in Shabbos actually takes it like that and quotes the pasuk. I'll read it out to you. Vayisatzvu besachtis ochor, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Omar Rav Avdimi bar Chamo bar Chasson. Rav Avdimi bar Chamo bar Chasson said, Melamed shekofa HaKadosh Baruch Hu aleim es ha'or kegigis. It comes to teach us that the Holy One, blessed be He, held suspended or threatened. It has the connotation of threatening as well, but let's say held threateningly above them, suspended, as Hohor, the mountain, Kegigis, as if it was a barrel. Whoop, there you go. And he said to them, Im atem mekablim es haTorah mutov. If you accept the Torah, everything is all right. V'im lav, and it is not. Shom tehei kevoraschem. There will be your burial place. We have to ask a question here. We can ask the obvious question. What do you mean? We were like strong-armed into Matan Torah. What happened to Nasa v'Nishma? What happened to our voluntary statement that we said, whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, we will do? It doesn't appear literally in this preamble. It appears only after that. But here it says, Nasa, we will do it, right? So we've already read that. So what does it mean they were forced into it? You can ask that question, but I want to ask another question. Possibly a little bit more subtle. I want to ask on the language here. V'im lav. if you refuse, if you do not accept the Torah, Shom tehei kevuraschem, there will be your burial ground. What do you mean there? Here. Not there. Here. He held the mountain over them and he said, accept the Torah or I'll bury you here. What does it mean I bury you there? Which there are we talking about? You see the question? It's so, once you see it, it's an obvious question to ask. And in the wake of that question, I want to go further and ask yet another question. What is this language? Im atem mekablim es ha-Torah mutov. If you accept the Torah, it should say im tekablu es ha-Torah. If you will accept the Torah mutov. It says, it doesn't say that. It says im atem mekablim ha-Torah mutov. If you are receivers of the Torah. Right? You hear the difference? Im tekablu, if you will accept. No, that's not what it says. Im atem mekablim, if you are the acceptors of the Torah. It also even, although I misread it, I said es ha-Torah, it doesn't say it. Mekablim ha-Torah, if you are receivers of the Torah. Right? It's construct. Mekablim ha-Torah, they are the mekablim of the Torah. So, it looks actually a little bit different than the way you would naively understand it on first reading. What is this Shom? I'm going to complicate matters even further. And I'm going to say that there is another source, this time a Zohar, and the Zohar says, B'shate de'ovad lei, when Hashem created the world, uvoro le'odom, and he created man, omar lei, he said to the world, the universe, alma alma, world, ant v'nimusoch, lo kaimin elo alo raisa, you and your laws only exist because of the Torah. Kach, and for that reason, Borossi leila odom boch, I have created man on you. Begin the yisasik bo, that man should occupy himself with it, be in love, and if he doesn't, ha'ona ahada loch lesauvo, then I will return you to your primordial state of being chaotic and only having potential. Tohu being chaotic, bohu having potential. V'kule beginei, the Adam kaime, and all that, so that man will be able to be mekayim the Torah, to fulfill the Torah. Hadohu dichsiv, and isn't this what is written in Sefer Yeshayahu 45:12? Onochi osisi eretz v'odom oleh b'osi. I made the world and I created man on it. V'araisa kaima umachresa, and the Torah during its existence constantly exclaims or proclaims the Bnei Nosha to the people. Begin the isasku v'ishtadlu bo, that they should strenuously apply themselves and be busy with this Torah. V'les man d'yachim udnei, and nobody lends an ear. Literally, nobody cares. It's there, but nobody listens. It's a very pessimistic Zohar. Zohar actually connects the existence of heaven and earth and the laws of nature to Torah. And that is hinted at in a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, where it says, Kara ma Hashem, thus speaketh Hashem. Im lau brisi yama v'layla, if not for my covenant by day and by night, chukas shomayim v'oras la samti, the laws of the heavens and the earth I would not have created, I would not have put. The whole of reality, the whole of the cosmos exists for the sake of Torah. Right? For the sake of Torah. When we come to Har Sinai, we start a process of engaging with the Torah. That Torah is not just the sum total of Jewish learning. No, it is the expression of the very will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the very blueprint of his creation. It is why he created the world in the first place. It is of cosmic significance. And we were brought to Har Sinai to participate in the process of becoming Mekablim HaTorah, the receivers of the Torah. That is meant by I think that's what meant by the Gemara in Shabbos. Im atem mekablim HaTorah, if you are receivers of the Torah, if you are receptive to this Torah, then mutar, then everything will be all right. V'im lav, if not, shom tehei kevuraschem, there will be your burial place. Now we're going to decode where that there is, where that shom is, and for that we go to the end of Sefer Yecheskel, the prophet Ezekiel. The last 7 or 8 chapters of Yecheskel speak about the restoration of the Jewish people, about the Messianic age, about a period of universal peace, of the rectification of everything that is wrong with the world. It sounds very idealistic, but it's one of the 13 principles of our faith, is that we believe that the Messianic times will come, and we expect them every day. And we are supposed to do our utmost best to rectify the world, to achieve a tikkun olam, to prepare the world for this period. At the end of the description of Yerushalayim in those days, with all the measurements, it goes into great detail. It describes the third Beis HaMikdash, all its measurements, all its dimensions, the whole organizations there. But then at the very end, in the 35th pasuk, it says, it continues, it says, Soviv Shmona Osor Bo'elef, the circumference of the city will be 18,000 of certain measure, which is called a koneh, a reed, whatever. That's not important. But then it ends with this, V'shem hu'iyah miyam, and the name of the city from that day on, Hashem Shoma. Hashem is there. The name of the city will be Hashem is there. The name of the city will say, this is the place where we have brought the presence of God in the world. And we have done it in collaboration with him through the process of bringing Torah in the world, confronting the world with the one creator and preparing the world to accept that. And by knowing that there is one creator, the differences between people, between mortals, become mere details, become mere footnotes. And the importance of all the reasons for which wars are being fought start to be revealed as being of no significance whatsoever in the grand scheme of things, as the expression goes. But the name of the city will be called Hashem Shom. It's the same word as Shom Tehei Kiburaschem. That over there, that future, not here, over there, then, pointing away when you say there, you never mean here. You mean something over there. And by the way, there's also the notion of shame. A name is also not something that refers to me. I don't have a name. When I feel myself to be myself, I don't call myself Amos. I call myself Amos when I go to you, when I speak to you. Then I introduce myself. This is my name. A name is always a relationship. And therefore, the word shame, name, and the word shom over there are the same root. So, the name of the city will be, according to the Navi, Hashem Shama. Hashem is there. The presence of Hashem can be found over there. And it's over there because it speaks about the future. If you now go a little bit further and you look up the chapter where this verse, if not for my covenant with the day and the night, by day and by night, I would not have made the laws of nature. If you look up in which chapter it appears, it's not in Yechezkel, it's in Yirmiyahu, in the prophet Jeremiah. It's in the 33rd chapter, and you should read it. It's such a beautiful chapter, and you will recognize so many expressions there. For example, the expression kal soso v'kal simcho, kal chasu v'kal kalo comes from that chapter. It's a vision of what the Messianic future will look like for the Jewish nation. When the cities will be rebuilt, when Jewish life returns to Eretz Yisrael, which it has done in the meantime already. So if we use the opportunity wisely, then we could come much, much closer to the final rectification of our world and this Messianic age that we're talking about. Now, if you look there and you want to find out in what context this pasuk about Chukas Shemayim V'Oretz, the laws of heaven and earth, is being said, then you find the following interesting words. You find that Bayomim Hoheim Tivosha Yehuda V'Yerushalayim Yishkan Lo Vetach. Those words you may also recognize from the prayer for the royal family that is said in many synagogues. I don't know in your synagogue, but in my synagogue it will quote this verse. When we say, we now say the prayer, of course, for the king, we say, B'yamav u'b'yomenu, in his days and in our days, Tivosha Yehuda, Yehuda will be saved, V'Yerushalayim Yishkan Lo Vetach, Yerushalayim will dwell safely, Uvol Tzion Goel, V'Namar Omen. That's how it ends. But in this passage it says, Bayomim Moheim, in the days of Moshiach, Tivosha Yehuda, Yerushalayim Yishkan Lo Vetach, Yehuda will be saved and Yerushalayim will dwell safely. V'zeh Asher Yikra Lo, and this is what it will be called. Hashem Tzidkenu. Hashem is our righteousness. It's a period of righteousness. It's a period that righteousness finally prevails in the entire world. That's what it is. And Yerushalayim itself will be called. This place that Yechezkel called Hashem Shoma, Hashem is there. Here it's spelled out. What does that mean? It means Hashem Tzidkenu. It means Hashem is our righteousness. So now we see what it is said. If you are Mekablim HaTorah, or if you are acting as an actor in the unfolding of Torah in the world that starts with Ma'amad HaSinai, then everything mutov, everything will be all right in the end. Everything will become all right. V'im lav, but if not, shom, that shom in the future, that could be Hashem Shomo, Hashem Tzidkenu, will be Kuvuraschem. You will have failed in your mission and you will be buried over there in the future. You won't survive. So if you want to survive as a Jewish people, you survive for the reason for which I have brought you here, namely that you should become an Am Segula, that you should become a Memleches Kohanim and a Kai Kodash with the mission of unfolding the Torah in the world. If you do that, it will be fine. If you don't, you won't survive. Shom tehei kvuaschem. The shom that could have been, would become your burial place. Now, we have other promises that Torah will never be forgotten about among the Jewish people. It doesn't mean that every Jew not every Jew is on board. Let's be realistic. We have an Archbishop of Canterbury in this country whose grandfather was a Jew. He is maybe he will come back, maybe he won't come back, but let's be realistic. It has always been about She'eris Yisrael, the remnant of the Jewish people. But they are the Makablim HaTorah that the Gemara in Shabbos speaks about. So in that spirit, wishing you a wonderful cheesecake time. Sure as we eat cheesecake. Yeah, look, it's good that we have tangible ways of tasting our Jewishness in our food. There's nothing wrong with that. But we shouldn't forget what the main message is. The main message is Matan Torah is not an event in the past. Matan Torah is the beginning of a process that continues until today. Wishing you a good Yom Tov.
והוא עובר והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפץ כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובר והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא לעת נשא בחפץ כל אזי מלך שמו נקרא ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא עובר בתפארה והוא עובר והוא יהיה בתפארה